we were not in the same team in that. It was a Moon-Mars Habitat Design Workshop at the European Space Agency. We didn't meet, but we talked a lot again about the idea of humans going to Mars, because Arno is probably even more a Mars fanatic than I am. So we talked a lot, but again, nothing really. After that workshop, because of my discussions with Arno, I picked up the work again, and I looked again at my old calculations from university, which was then 8 years ago, and looked at what I had already done and what needed to be done, and the technology changed, because there were some of the companies, some of the private space companies were already emerging by then. But again, I had a job, I was working at the university, so I forgot about it again at some point. And then I worked at the university for a couple of years, and I started my wind energy company out of university. I was working at the university on wind energy, and I was interviewed by a journalist about that company, and she asked me, what would you like to do after Ampix Power? Ampix Power is the name of my previous company. And I was working 70 or 80 hours a week on wind energy, so I never thought about what am I going to do after that. So I really had to think about that. And then I said, well, if I become a billionaire from my wind energy company, then I would really like to organize my own mission to Mars. And I said this to a journalist, which was really stupid, because she wanted to write about it. So fortunately I managed to let her keep that out of the story, because I was, in my company, I was responsible for finding investors and business development. So it's not a good idea if this got out at that point. So after that, again, I didn't think about it. But then she wrote me an email about the paper of two American scientists, Schulz McCool, and I forgot the name of the other person. Does anyone know? No. And they wrote a scientific paper about organizing. If you would go to Mars, it would be much easier to do it one way, and with some good.
70-year-old people, old people.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how old they are, but they're gray hair. Yeah. So she wrote me an email. The journalist that interviewed me about my wind energy company, she wrote me an email and she said, they're stealing your idea. Which is of course not true, because 100 people have been talking about permanent settlement missions. But at that moment, then it happened. That email was for me the trigger, and I emailed Arno, who I didn't talk to for years. And I emailed him and I said, Arno, we're going to sit behind the table now, and we were both convinced that technically it's extremely complex to go to Mars, but it's possible. Mission of permanent settlement is possible. And so, but we just never could figure out, how are you going to finance a mission to Mars? So I emailed Arno, I said, we're going to sit together and we're not moving away from the table until we find a good solution for that. So we sat behind the table and we worked the whole day, internet and brainstorming and all kinds of things, and nothing really good came out until one of us thought of the Olympic Games. And we Googled, we said to each other, well, everybody watched Neil Armstrong and Bas Aldrin, everybody will watch this. What's the value of that? Maybe we can do something with that. So we looked up the numbers for the revenue numbers for the Olympic Games, and we found that the London Olympics, actually back then it was the Beijing Olympics, they have revenues of about $3.5 billion US from sponsorships and broadcasting rights. In London it was about 4 billion. So then we thought, nothing really. It didn't really mean anything to us, because we're both, Arno is a physicist, I'm a mechanical engineer. How does the London Olympics compare to a mission to Mars? I had no clue whatsoever. So there comes the next bit of luck. We were still brainstorming, so I said, okay, who do we ask about this? We need someone who can think out of the box. So we contacted the guy who invented Big Brother. And his name is Paul Römer. He's one of our ambassadors now in Mars One. And I didn't have his phone number. Obviously, he was on the board of directors of Endemol, one of the big media companies in the world. So you don't have a guy like that in your phone book. And so I added him on LinkedIn, and I sent him a one-line message saying, "Dear Mr. Römer, I would like to discuss with you the media value of a one-way mission to Mars. Regards, Bas." So he wrote me back and he said, "Please come over and let's discuss." But what are the odds that you think of some media expert and you contact him and he turns out to be a science fiction fan. You don't know. And also he was, I didn't know that, but he just quit the board of directors of Endemol and he didn't have a new job yet. So he was in between jobs and he was looking forward to discussing this with two guys who had a really crazy plan. So what are the odds of this happening? And you know, if you contact someone and you get a no, I'm a perseverant guy, so you try again, but how many times are you going to try before you think, you know what, maybe it's just not a good idea? So you need both perseverance and luck, but so many of these little things, knowing Arno, the contacting this guy, the scientist writing that paper, being interviewed by the journalist, it's all kinds of little things that add up to starting Mars One, and that's something that's really bizarre. So we went to, I'll finish that story, we went to Paul Römer, and so we told him our technical story and he listened very politely, didn't really say anything, and he said in the end, well, I don't at all believe that this is technically possible, but if this is technically possible, then it's going to be the biggest story of all times. If you can show that this is technically possible, then this is something that people will want to see in the news for the next 50 years to come. And this was, I remember this exactly because it was for me the dream taking a huge step from a dream to reality. And within 1 month I sold the shares in my other company and started Mars One. Because I thought this is possible, I have to try to do this. And as I'm an entrepreneur and I know a few things about taking risks, financial risks, etc. And of course, putting your money in a human mission to Mars is not a really smart thing to do. Because the chance that we will succeed, it's so complex, this plan that we have started to undertake, and we're so much further now already. But 2 years ago it was just an idea, but it's such a big idea, and it's so much my dream that I thought it was worth investing a very significant portion of the funds that I have in doing this, because I think this is something that has to be done, and it would be living my plan A to be able to take part in that. So so we started, and I started Mars One personally. So Arno has different reasons, but everybody I think has their different reasons to be interested. I personally, I said it already, I'm a builder. I just want to build this. I want to build this thing. I want to make it possible. In the documentary you hear different opinions of the applicants, and you must have different opinions too. Stefan, he said he wants to leave a mark. To me, I don't care at all. I mean, when I'm gone, and it doesn't really interest me if people will think about me after that. I hope my family will think about me, but for the rest I don't really care. I'm not there to notice. So for me that's not an issue, and to do something great, it's really, for me it's just to do that thing because I want to do it, not because it's great or anything. I wanted to go to Mars because I wanted to build something there. But different people have different reasons. But when I started Mars One, this was really my message. We should just do it because we have to build this colony. And slowly, beautiful pan flute. We should have timed that differently. This was for the end of my speech. So, different people have different reasons, and I found out, especially after we launched the website, that it's not just about building. It's for everybody in this world. It means something else, but for everybody it means something. I never met anyone who said, "Oh, really? I wouldn't care." Everybody has an opinion about the human mission to Mars, especially when you tell that it's a permanent settlement mission. But going to Mars is something that will touch everybody on this planet in some kind of way. Everybody will know it, and everybody will feel different the day after it happened than the day before it happened. it will literally change the world. And I didn't think about that when I launched the website of Mars One. We didn't think so big, and you can still see that on our website. It's a very, we just inform we're going to do this, but I think we should focus more on the grandness of this, because if this will really happen, the world will be a different place, and especially since we are going to select people from, we're going to have 2 men and 2 women from 4 different continents to really make it represent the world on its next step. I think if you look at how big the impact was of the Apollo mission, while it was an American event, everybody in the world, and when you ask people in Holland, where were you during the Apollo mission, everybody still knows. And it's probably the same in Russia and in China and in Brazil. Everybody who had access to that information, especially if they saw the TV images, everybody knows where he was when this happened. And I think that's a reason why we have the first reason why going to Mars will be bigger than going to the moon. The first reason is we'll do this as an international effort. So 4 people from 4 different continents will go to Mars, so that everybody feels in some way attached to this mission, or at least 80 or 90% of the people will be from somewhere close to the people who actually land there. But the other thing is, we live in a time where everybody has a TV screen in their pocket. So in the time of the moon landings, you had to go to people who had a TV, because not everybody had a TV. Some people traveled to the city to watch it on a color TV. But the impact of doing something like that in the current age, where everybody is always connected in some way to some form of media, that's just tremendous. And because of that, and because of the international aspect, I think that this will change the world in ways that we cannot even imagine right now. And people ask me, should you spend it on solving hunger in the world? But I think that you cannot change the world with something like $6 billion more significantly in any other way than by spending it on a human mission to Mars, because this will change everything. The way we think about the planet, the way we think about other countries, the way we cooperate with each other. So let's make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bas, and I'm sure that your comments have further spurred some questions in people's minds, so we appreciate that you're going to be with us to answer some questions. So if you're shy and you don't want to ask your question directly, you can write them down on the sheets that we've been using, or if you have a question, state the question relatively loudly. I'm actually going to have Austin grab one of the microphones. So if you stand and recognize yourself, we'll come to you with a microphone so that our folks on live stream can hear your question. And we're actually going to start our first question with my favorite Martian.
Green light? Okay, good.
There you go.
So, I'll stay over here. All morning, people in the virtual world have been asking me to ask questions for them, and I haven't been able to squeeze them in. So I promised that I would ask this one. It's from, I think her name is Edis, E-D-I-G-S. She's from Lithuania, and she's been watching faithfully the whole time. Her question is Mars One considering creating a website or quiz-like game to help the applicant and public learn about the mission /space/Mars? There are a lot of people wanting it.
I think I should grab it like, I think I should turn it on. Does it have, yeah, now it works. So one of the things I think that Mars One can achieve is for people to be interested again in the science and technology courses at school. So we are already thinking with one of the potential partners that we're talking to about a game that will involve children. We're preparing an educational package which we will send to especially high schools that will because we've built a website for you guys to be able to apply. We can reuse this website to get videos from high school kids between 12 and 18 years old who answer questions of Mars One about something we haven't really decided on the questions yet. But for instance, why do you think it's important that humans go to Mars? And have a package where kids can learn about Mars, about humans. Can humans go to Mars? About Mars One, and then think for themselves, how do I feel about that? We are working on upgrades on our website to provide much more information on the mission, much more technical information also. So all these things are ongoing. So yes.
Okay, so if you have a question, please stand. Austin, wow, okay. All right, how about this? Everybody stand, and if you have a question, say, I'm just kidding.
Sometimes what makes for the best television are petty people with their conflicts just being awful to each other. How do you
That is absolutely not true. I hate those shows.
I don't want to either, but it's what gets the money. It's what gets the ratings. So how do you...
Only because there's no alternative.
Okay. Do you have any plans on how to balance people who would be good applicants with people who would draw all the eyeballs?
Yes.
That's actually a great question.
It is a really good question, and I started talking about Paul Romer, and he's the inventor of Big Brother, and I think that's where most of the reality TV discussions have come from. I will make very clear that what we want to do on Mars can have nothing to do with any type of reality TV that's currently on TV, because first of all, we wouldn't want it, but maybe more importantly, the people on Mars wouldn't allow it. It's just like forcing someone to say the first words about a pop soda is not going to work, because you won't care anymore once you are there. For the same reason, if we would report to Earth about this mission in a way that people on Mars don't like, it's not going to happen. So what we expect is that the people that will go there, they will want to tell the world about this. I mean, all you guys are already doing that. You're posting in the forums. If people have questions, you answer them. By the way, all the people that also answer questions on the Mars One website, Facebook page, thank you, because it saves us a lot of time. And we will send the best people to Mars. And people ask us, but aren't those the boring people? They can't be boring people, because if you are traveling to Mars for 7 months with boring people, you're not going to make it. So the people who we select need to be interesting, because they need to live together with just 4 of them for 30 months before crew number 2 is coming. And these need to be interesting people too, because then they're for 26 months with just 8 of them. So you need people that are very interesting to watch. And these will be people that want nothing more than to tell about their experiences back on Earth. But it will be, the astronauts on Mars will be reporters reporting a very long event from Mars. It will be much more comparable to the Olympic Games than to any kind of reality television. And I've asked exactly the same question to Paul Romer. I asked him, but are people interested in watching astronauts? And he said, no, of course not. They're not watching astronauts. They're watching humans explore a whole new planet. It's not about their petty differences or all the things that are in the shows that Joe doesn't watch. It's about taking that next giant leap. And that's also I also asked Paul, I'm answering more questions than one, I'm sorry. I asked Paul Romer, myself, after the first meeting, because I went home singing together with Arno, but we in the car already, we said, oh, but wait a second, what about Apollo 11? Everybody watched. And then it got cancelled because nobody even turned on the TV anymore for Apollo 17. And first of all, Paul Romer said, that's not going to happen because this is not a mission about collecting rocks and people doing what they're being told. This will be a human mission. It will be humans cooperating to achieve the unachievable. And that's what people want to watch. They're not interested, the general audience is not interested in the science, but the general audience is interested in exploration because it's coded in our genome. And that's why we spread all over the world, because we have to, we can't help it. But of course, this is not the only source of revenue. We'll also have, and we'll be co-owner of intellectual property. We're having these discussions with our suppliers now. So we'll also have revenues from intellectual property later on. Wrapping up.
I was just wondering, is the largest cut in astronaut candidates going to be in the first round to the second round, or is that information available to us?
So Norbert was supposed to be here, and he's really the expert on the astronaut selection process. But I know, of course, a few things from my discussions with Norbert, but he is really the expert on that. We will let the people through of whom we think that they actually stand a chance of making it. So it depends more. We don't have a cut that we like a numerous fixes that we have, and anyone over that, too bad, you're out. But of course, some kind of trade-off is also there. Eh? We can't, if 90% of the people are good, then we won't allow 90% to go to the next round. But I'm expecting that somewhere between 10 and 30% will go to the next round.
Okay, sorry, my back English, I'm Cuban, I live in Miami, so sorry. My question is simple, how we can send ideas to the team that could be useful for the project? For example, a special web page or forum in the website. Not in Facebook because there are a lot of discussion, but maybe in the website, okay?
Any email that is sent to Mars One is read. So we do read every email, but we don't have the time to respond to all the emails individually because we have a mission to Mars to organize. But when we do get good suggestions, even if you get a standard reply saying thank you very much for your suggestion, if it is a good suggestion, then it will end up in a box with good suggestions that we do monitor. So the best way at this moment is email, and even if you get a standard template reply, you can count on it that all suggestions are taken seriously, except the hyperdrive ones, because we do get those too.
Would you prefer a funding question or a hardware question?
I would prefer your favorite question.
All right. So things like nuclear power. Zubrin thinks obviously a Topaz type reactor would be the best, which seems to make sense. But for political reasons, you might not be able to get one. But if you could purchase one, would you consider that? I think the official answer is no, based on your website. And things like artificial gravity. You said you actually worked on tethers. Would you consider that in the plan? I think also probably it's not in the plan and maybe unnecessary for just a one-way trip.
Is there a question you would like for Bas?
Yeah, I'd like to get his general sense of his view. I guess if you had the option to purchase a nuclear reactor, would you do so? A Topaz or something like a space nuclear reactor?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, in principle, I think that the idea of having a sustainable power source on Mars is a very good idea. It's possible with solar. So if we don't really need nuclear, should you do it? Nuclear is very useful on Mars because you don't need the power storage anymore. So I would think that if we could bring one on the first mission, I would think that the answer was yes. However, there's no 100 kilowatt nuclear reactor for sale. And there's not something that you can buy now and fly within 10 years. That's really not the case. And we would actually have to send it in 8 years when the cargo missions go, because it needs to be there and operational when you land. And to get approval, to launch it will be difficult. Nuclear technology, space technology is expensive. Nuclear technology is also very expensive, and nuclear space technology is really, really, really expensive, because people want so many guarantees, more than is actually necessary for it to ensure that it goes right, that I don't believe that there's any chance that we'll have it by that time. On artificial gravity, I'll briefly comment, because it's a really interesting question. You don't need it for a mission of permanent settlement, because you get weaker on the way to Mars, but it doesn't matter, because on Mars you'll get even weaker. So why would you try to keep your body on Earth level strength if you don't actually need that level? So you'll lose, in worst case scenario, you'll lose about 10% of your bone mass and 20% of your muscle mass when you land on Mars. But that's not an issue. It's because there's only 40% gravity, so you're Superman. And you have 80% strength, 40% gravity, you can lift things twice as heavy as you could lift on Earth. But the short-term things are important. So when you land, you'll feel disoriented, you'll feel dizzy, all the other things that astronauts feel when they return from the ISS in the short term. We just sit it out. People will wait in their capsule for a couple of hours, up to 48 hours before they get out and start doing their things. And by then, you will feel a lot better.
We have one question here from Twitter. Both you and Bob have mentioned some discussions you've had with the civilian space agencies of various countries. Is there any collaboration that you're doing with some of the traditional space agencies, and if so, what's been the most helpful?
And not with the organizations as a organization, but we do get a lot of support, especially from engineers and scientists in the space agencies. And some people there are also frustrated with the pace that things are moving at, and they are very eager to support anything that can speed things up. I think that the space agencies for quite some time to come will have a real issue with the permanent settlement aspect of our plan. Robert said that he thinks that it will get better by the end. I really don't know. It's very unpredictable. It's politics. I do think that there will be some sort of cooperation. So for instance, in our 2016 mission, we would very much welcome all the space agencies in the world to submit a payload for us to take to Mars. I mean, if we're going there anyway, we might as well take something of someone else and have the added having a NASA payload or an ESA payload or a Russian space agency payload on our mission will help us to create additional awareness for what we're doing. So that's definitely something that's possible. So we have very good discussions with individual people in the space agencies, but not at not with the space agency as an official organization.
Hi. A number of years ago, I remember reading an article about a man who, under international law, somehow filed a claim for land for Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Europa, pretty much every celestial body within the solar system. Is there any, he's been since selling pieces of land online and things like that. I've not heard anything to refute his claims. Is there potential problem with land and having to pay something to this person? Or do you know anything about it? Have you heard of it or anything?
Yeah, I know about it. I thought it was only the moon, but there's probably also people who do the same for Mars. It's simply not something legal, so nobody is really taking action because he sells it for like 25 bucks, and everybody knows that it's a fraud. So you can buy this, and it's a nice thing to put on your wall, but it has no legal support whatsoever. It's simply not something that you can do. As Robert said, no nation which